before we get started, I just want to I want to stress how important it is that we all show up next week. And that just because we're not meeting here doesn't mean it's a week off, but we show up and go to another church, and that we get outside of our walls, and that we interact with other Christians, and that we learn to behave. Yes. Yeah. We are going to Mission Community Church. It's just on the other side of the railroad tracks. So it's just probably, about 4 or 5 blocks from here. So Mission Community, just say it again.
Down the street from the brew house.
Yep, it's down the street from the brew house where we used to meet. Yeah, right on. I think they got big crosses in their front yard. They got 3 big crosses in their front yard. So, and while we are there, it's if you guys, whatever you were planning to do, give your offerings there. If you're planning on giving offerings next week, you give your offerings there. That stuff doesn't matter to us. This is I think this is an important thing for us to do, because we don't care about, we just don't have territories here, and I'm okay with other people, everyone going to other churches and experiencing other things, and I'm 100% okay with that. And so if we have that belief system, we should get out there and mingle with other churches and see what other places are like, and spend time with your neighbors, right? There's no rule that says that we have to be here every Sunday. We can go somewhere else and visit somewhere else. And so that's what we're going to do. I also want you to know that when we get there, there's probably going to be some differences. They may dress different than us. They may do things different than us. One thing that I know is that they're going to be calling David Pastor David. And that's a thing of respect for them. We don't do that. Our belief system is that we don't want to pile on titles to men, because it puffs them up, and that's praise that belongs to God. But we also recognize that not everyone has that belief, and that we're actually kind of alone on that, and that and that most people don't. But what I'm saying is, even though that's a deep held belief for us, and that I don't particularly go around calling these guys pastors, I call them by their names because that's what I do, and that's what we believe. But I also believe understand the spirit of it, and that we understand the concept. And so I want you to know that if they're calling their pastor, and they call me pastor, because I go into these other places and they call me pastor, and I don't look at them, and I'm like, what? Oh, you were talking. Okay, cool. You're talking to me. Okay. So if you hear them, calling me pastor and anything, we don't have to correct them and say, no, we don't do that. It's okay. All right. So, because we still understand the spirit of it. And so the stuff that we believe, we understand why we believe it. And it's the spirit of us believing it. And then we don't have to correct people who don't believe the stuff that we believe. Right. So it's okay. There'll be some stuff that'll be different, and that's good. We should learn from each other, and there'll be, it's not one of those subjects that it has to be corrected, right? It's not one of those things that we still understand the spirit of it for us, so that we don't need to correct other people about their stuff, right? Yes?
I've been involved with some of the members of their church. They're very loving,
They are, yeah.
interested in community,
yeah.
doing good,
Yeah.
producing.
Yeah, and we love them. We're very close with them. We've actually showed up to a cleaning night that they had, to which their church didn't show up to. Our church did. It was cool. So it was one of those times where everybody was out of town and stuff except us. So we all went there and helped out. So we've been very close with them. They have very similar beliefs. Every church on the planet has some similar beliefs and then some different beliefs, and there's very few that are exact. Even inside denominations, those churches aren't exact. There's always stuff that's different, and it's okay, right? Because here's a big surprise. There's actually some of us in this room that have different beliefs about different things, and it's okay. And this is what it's about: is that we can have those and it not cause us to divide. So this is the stuff that we want to fix in church, that we can have differences of opinion and even differences of beliefs without it dividing us, that we can still sit together and eat together and go to church together and it be okay. All right? So let's say this prayer. Spirit of God, teach me what Greg cannot. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm going to attempt to not be as long-winded. I just recently found out that I am long-winded, and it surprised me, but I shouldn't have been surprised, really, but I'm going to try to not be as long-winded. Normally, I'm pretty good at picking up verbal cue or nonverbal cues, and stuff like that, but I'm just blowing right past them, so.
But it's not up to you.
Sometimes it is. I don't know. Sometimes it is, I guess. I don't know. Did we already pray? Okay, awesome. Excellent. Here we go. We're going to start this morning in Psalms 37, which is awesome because we always are reading in the New Testament, and this will be fun for us to do some reading in the Old Testament. What is God's expectations for us? There's two things that God expects from us. What does he really want? He drops us on this planet. He says, here's what I want you to do. All right, one more time. Okay, discipling's part of it, yeah? Because discipling's doing what? It's producing what? Producing fruit, right. So he told us to produce fruit. What was the other thing he told us to do? Specifically, how do we get to where we are? It's foundational. You're probably not going to be able to produce a whole lot of fruit if you don't do this. Somebody said believe. Believe. Trust, faith, believe, right? Trust God that his system is the right one, right? So when he drops Adam and Eve in the garden, he says, here you go, guys. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to trust me that the option I'm giving you is the best option. By the way, there's another option, and it's terrible, and it produces death, and it's not meant for you, and it could be really bad for you. And I just want you to trust me that option is a bad one. I have to be honest because I'm God and I'm just and I'm fair. And I have to be honest, that option is available to you, but it ain't a good one. And the one that I got for you is the one that you need. And I just want you to trust me on that. And then, by the way, just go produce. Go produce fruit. Be fruitful, multiply, enjoy this. And so, very simple, right? Oh, cool. We'll just trust you and we'll produce fruit. And then we have this opportunity in front of us of this other option, and we chose it. I say we because we chose it. Right? It would be fun for us to just blame Adam and Eve, but we still keep choosing it. So that's why I can safely say we, is because we still choose the knowledge of good and evil over God's path and God's plan. And so God's desire for us was to produce and to trust him. Right? But I got to be honest with you. I really, the producing fruit one, I'm going to be honest, that's easy. I can produce fruit. Right? You can look in the Bible and you can see what you're supposed to do. You can produce the fruit, and I can produce fruit when I want to, and I can not produce it when I don't want to. And sometimes I produce it and sometimes I don't. The difficult one is the trust, isn't it? Anybody ever have some issues with trusting? Whew, man. And so God's expectation is that we would trust him and that we would produce fruit. And so this morning's message is really for me because sometimes I'm struggling with the trusting part. And sometimes I want to fix this stuff myself. And he wants me to trust him. And if he doesn't show up when I think he should show up, I show up. My life gets so dysfunctional and messy when I show up. If I could just stay out of my life. You know what I mean? It's like look in the mirror and be like, stay out of my life. I don't need you. But I keep coming back. And so I want to look at the subject of trust this morning, and I want to look through the Psalms. And I was just reading in the Psalms, and this one just stood out to me as I went through this. It was such a amazing thing, and I just wanted to. It's really helping me see what trust looks like. And so, if we can begin in Psalms chapter 37, who brought their Bibles today? Everybody bring their Bibles. The phone does not count, and I'll tell you why. Because I said so. For me, I read the Bible on the phone and stuff, and it's great because it's super quick. If you want to reference things and go look at this and give me 5 more verses and give it to me in English and Hebrew and Jamaican or whatever, but what I like about having my actual workbook is that I can write in this and then I can highlight stuff. And so it's good to have the workbook with you, right? If you want to highlight stuff and underline stuff or jot little notes, it's okay. Because this book is, the actual paper in it is not sacred. It's not. Like, the Bible is beautiful and it's important and it's my lifeline and it's a light to my path and a lamp to my feet, and it's important in a lot of ways. But if something happened to this one, I have another one that is the same color and everything that I could just go to that one and highlight and write into that. And if something happened to that one, I could just go get another one, because it is a book with paper and ink on it. All right. It itself is not sanctimonious or holy. And so I'm not offended by people highlighting and writing in their workbooks. It's a workbook. Like, the spirit of this is that God would want you to use this as a workbook for your life, not that you would treat it as this holy, sanctimonious thing that cannot be touched. No, it needs to be touched. It should have snot and tears and all that kind of stuff in it, because it's getting touched, because it should be like cleansing you and the very fabric of your life. And so you and this book should be intertwined. And so it's okay. So write in it, highlight it, all that kind of stuff, right? It's good. Workbooks. I like to use it as a workbook. Homework assignment for this week. We're going to skip around a little bit in Psalm 37. The homework assignment for this week is that you would all read the entire chapter, Psalm 37. It's not very long. It's 40 verses. But just this challenge for you this week is to read it. And what I would do is, as you go through it, highlight everything that's fruit. And really, one of the things I'm going to start doing is everywhere in the Bible, everywhere that I see fruit, I just want to highlight it. And you can highlight them different colors, and hopefully it'll look like a fruit tree when you're done. But highlight everything that you can see as evidence of God in your life, the fruit of the Spirit, the evidence of the Spirit in your life. Starting in verse 3, it says, by the way, who brought their Bibles? Who brought their workbooks? So, like a lot of you. So here's the deal. If you brought it, you get 2 extra weeks in heaven. Okay? So for those of you who didn't, I'm sorry, you're limited to eternity. But the rest of you get 2 extra weeks, okay? Verse 3 says, trust in the Lord and do good. That sounds a lot like trust God and produce fruit. I love the Psalms because they're very prophetic. And I think sometimes we go through it and it just looks like poetry, and it's nice and it's beautiful, and it's David's struggles and his triumphs. But David is incredibly prophetic as well. And a lot of things that David says, what I love about King David is he is accessing righteousness by faith before the time of Jesus. Like, he is taking part in all the Jesus stuff before Jesus even gets here. Because that's how David saw, he was so close to God, and he was such a man after God's own heart, that he was so close to him, and that he could recognize who his shepherd was. And I love what happens in David's life, and he's a very prophetic person. And so he is basically describing what God wants for you. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and feed on his faithfulness. Delight yourself also in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. What is that, to delight yourself in the Lord? What does that mean, you think? Yeah.
It's not just having, it's not tears, but having a joy in your heart.
Yeah.
Bubbles up.
Yeah. What do you think when you think delight? Ice cream? Yeah. That's delightful. Absolutely. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Yeah. What were you going to say, Franny?
I think it's praising God out loud in your private time at home.
Yeah.
To him
Yeah. So much going on in here of gratefulness that it cannot be not expressed outwardly. Yeah, definitely. Love it.
For me, it's just wanting to be with him, first of all, and just enjoying that time with him where, like, the more time I spend with God, the more time I want to spend with him.
Yeah, the more time you spend with them, the more time you want to, and spending time and enjoying it, delighting yourself. Yes.
I think of it like contentness, just being happy where you are with God.
Yeah.
Just so content and satisfied.
Yeah. Just absolutely joyful. You're delighted in it. It's a great time. And so think about that description of delighting yourself in the Lord. And does that match Christianity today? Do we delight ourselves in the Lord? Is this a good trip that we're on with him? Is this fun? Are we enjoying this? Is it good for us? Or are we feeling discouraged and beat up? Are we feeling like failures in this? Right? So God's desire was for us to delight ourselves in him, that we would spend time with him and that we would enjoy that time. How many like to spend time with people that you enjoy and that enjoy you? That's great, isn't it? Yeah. And that's what God's looking for with us, is that kind of relationship, that we delight ourselves in him. And then it says he'll give us the desires of our heart. It does not say he'll give us the desires of our flesh. I have heard it preached that, if you delight yourself in the Lord, he'll give you the desires of your heart. So what do you want? Corvette? Cool. You get it. That's not the desire of your heart. Come on. That's the desire of your flesh. God gives you the desires of your heart. The stuff that's in there, right? The desires of your heart are things like, I want to have peace in my home. I want to have fantastic relationships with everybody I come in contact with. I want to be able to grow. I want to be able to produce. The desire of my heart is to be a good dad, to be a good husband, to be a good son. That's the desire of my heart. And so as we delight ourselves in the Lord, he begins to give us the desires of our heart. We can confuse that and say the desires and just leave it at desires. But what he's talking about are the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord and trust also in him. God bless you. And he shall bring it to pass. If you trust and you commit your way to the Lord, trust also in him, he shall bring it to pass. He shall bring forth. What is it that he's going to bring to pass? What is he going to bring forth? Your righteousness. That righteousness is the right standing, the right position with God. Your righteousness is the complete and utter lack of sin in your life. Righteousness is cleanness. It's rightness. It's 100% pure and accurate. So your righteousness does not come from your behaviors, but where does it come from? Trust in him. By me trusting in him, this is where my righteousness will come from. This is the Psalms telling us this in the Old Testament before Jesus. This is a prophetic word of how we obtain righteousness in our life. It is through trusting in him. He shall bring it forth. He shall bring forth your righteousness as the light and your justice as the noonday. What I like about that is, how often does light show up? Every day. It keeps happening, doesn't it? It just keeps happening. It just keeps showing up in my life, right? I get up and there it is. And that's how he's going to deliver righteousness. Every day. Every day. I really, really want us to take advantage, full advantage of God's righteousness in our life. That every single day you would experience God's righteousness in your life. That you would wake up not feeling guilty about who you are, but feeling great about the righteousness that he's given you. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. He is starting to give us some examples and some how-to of how to trust. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. What does it look like to rest and wait patiently? You guys ever had to wait for stuff? Right? And, like you're standing in line, right? And when you start doing this, that means I'm waiting, but I'm not doing it patiently. Like, I'm just like, oh. But waiting patiently looks a little different, doesn't it? Waiting patiently is like, cool, yeah. That's cool. How about this one? Waiting patiently and you're standing in line and someone gets in front of you. Excuse me, Holmes. I was here first. But when you're waiting patiently, you're like, man, it's cool. I got nowhere to be anyway. Be my guest. I'm waiting patiently. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those people are definitely more important than us, right? And we come across that. When you're waiting patiently, it's not that big of a deal. But how many know when you're in a hurry, it's a big deal? Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. What does that look like? Yeah, go ahead.
You can't rest in the Lord if you're carrying the load yourself. So, what I'm thinking about is cast your cares, your worries, whatever is funny that you're dealing with on Him. Then you can rest because you're not carrying yourself and trusting that the Lord.
Yeah. So the picture that should start to get painted in your mind right now of what we should look like when we're trusting is that we should look like we're waiting patiently and resting. And does our Christianity look like that? Yeah, sometimes, occasionally, every now and then. And this is what this is what he's designed for us, that we would rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret because of him who prospers in his way. And so that is this idea that Jesus has this way that he's put this path in front of us, and that we're walking this path and that we're following him. And then there are some people who choose to walk in their own way. Right? And sometimes we'll see these people walk in their own way and they start to become very successful. And you can be walking on this path following Jesus going, wait a minute. Whoa, he got my Corvette. Well, why is all the good stuff happening to this guy? What's going on with that? Right? And there's this warning here that's saying, by the way, this is going to happen. And when it does, don't fret. Don't fret because of anything that they got going on there. And don't fret about anything that you got going on here. Don't worry about people who are prospering in their own way. And because of the man who brings wicked schemes to pass, cease from anger and forsake wrath. Do not fret. It only causes harm. And so as we're going on our path and we start to know the wicked going on their own path and becoming successful, he's telling us, listen, when that happens, I don't want you to worry about that. And I don't want you to fret about that. I don't want you to be envious of what they've got going on, because that stuff is going to be very temporary. And by the way, you getting angry about it isn't going to change anything. And you fretting and worrying, it only is going to cause harm. For evildoers will be cut off. But those who wait on the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. Those who are on their path and they see other people taking shortcuts, and there's this temptation to go, oh, that looked like it was a whole lot easier. Let's just take that shortcut. And he's saying those who are patient and were willing to wait on the Lord and don't need to get ahead and don't need to take shortcuts, but who are willing to just patiently sit back and wait, they will inherit the earth. For yet a little while, and the wicked shall be no more. Indeed, you will look carefully for his place, but it shall be no more. But the meek shall inherit the earth, and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. Man, doesn't that sound fantastic? Right? I think most of us would be like, I'll settle for a little bit of peace, but abundance of peace, that sounds awesome. Right? This day and age and society that we live in, an abundance of peace just sounds impossible. And yet, what the Bible is describing to us here is those who are willing to wait and those who are willing to be patient and to be meek, that you delight yourselves in the abundance of peace. I want to skip to verse 34. It says this, wait on the Lord. You guys heard this before? Wait on the Lord. This is now the third time that the psalmist has said, wait on the Lord. Do you know why he's done that 3 times? Because it takes that much to get through to us. Wait on the Lord. Okay, I will. No, wait on him. Okay, I will. Wait on the Lord. Wait on the Lord. I tell you, it's hard to follow Jesus when we get out in front of him, isn't it? It's hard to follow Jesus if, boy, it's really, when you're in a hurry, it's hard to follow anybody, isn't it? Waiting can be a difficult thing, especially when you're waiting for answers. You're waiting for what should I do? And you're seeing all kinds of stuff happening around you and chaos happening around you. And you want to go fix that stuff. Instead of letting someone else fix it for you, instead of letting God do his thing, we want to get ahead and go, okay, God, well, looks like you're going to show up, so I'm just going to go ahead and take care of this. God, I'm not really comfortable with this situation, so I'm just going to go ahead and fix it. I don't know what your plans were here, but it's kind of taken a while, and I need to get this done. But those who wait on the Lord and keep his way. Every time that we choose not to wait, we're choosing our own way and not his way. And he shall exalt you to inherit the land. And when the wicked are cut off, you will see it. I have seen the wicked in great power and spreading themselves as a native green tree, and yet they all pass away, and behold, he is no more. Indeed, I looked for him, but he could not be found. Mark the blameless man and observe the upright, for the future of that man is peace. But the transgressor shall be destroyed together. The future of the wicked will be cut off. But the salvation, which is what the word Jesus means, salvation. But the salvation of the righteous comes from where? comes from the Lord. He is their strength in a time of trouble. And the Lord shall help them and deliver them. And he shall deliver them from the wicked and save them. And here's why he's going to do all that. It's at the end of verse 40. Because they trust in him. Because they trust in him. I think about how Jesus lived his life, and we look at the stories of Jesus in the New Testament and in the Gospels, and we see just how Jesus lived. And do you know that Jesus also had to live by faith? Do you know that the things that Jesus did, he did by faith? That he, much like us, trusted his Father. The things he did not do in his own strength. He trusted his Father. Give you an example. Temptation. We look at that story of temptation. Here's the part we didn't realize when the devil came to Jesus and said, "You hungry? All right. Why don't you turn that stone into bread?" I mean, you know that there's no law, Mosaic or otherwise, that says you can't turn stone into bread. Except maybe like laws of nature. And so he wouldn't be breaking a rule. He wouldn't be sinning by turning this stone into bread. There's no cardinal rule that says thou shalt not turn stone into bread. But what he would be doing is operating in his own strength and not in the strength of his Father. Because his Father didn't say, turn this stone into bread. And Jesus would have been performing a miracle outside of the trust of his Father. He would have been doing something in his own ability. And Jesus refused to do anything in his own ability. The miracles that he performed, he did not perform them in his own ability. He performed them through the trust in his Father. When they broke that bread, it wasn't because Jesus had magic hands. That bread broke because he was trusting in God that when he broke it, it would multiply. Jesus trusted in his Father. And so I look at the life of Jesus, and he's all about having faith. And look at, where's your faith? What you trust me on this. Jesus is continually throughout the beginning to the end talking about how we should trust him. And he lived an example of trust. And I love just seeing the scriptures come alive and just watching how comfortable Jesus was and just how much he walked in faith and how much he trusted. And it was when he discipled those 12, that's the thing that he was discipling them in, was in trust. And so many times we would see he would take moments and opportunities to teach them about faith and about trust. Thinking about the time that Jesus got into a boat and he said, let's go over the other side. You guys remember this? Love this story. Jesus says, let's go get in the boat. Let's go over the other side. And what does Jesus do? He gets in the boat and he takes a nap. And he's like, we're going to the other side. And because I said we're going to the other side, it means we're going to go to the other side. Peace. I'm out. Jesus lays down and he goes to sleep. He's resting in the Lord. You see this picture of someone who trusts? He just gets in the boat and he's like, all right, let's go. We're going to make it to the other side. He believed so much that they were going to make it to the other side. They just got in the boat and he went to bed and he went to sleep. When he got in the boat, he wasn't thinking, you know what, you guys got this. I'm just going to take a nap. You guys are capable of handling the boat. You guys got this. I'm going to take a nap. It wasn't that Jesus was overly tired and he just didn't want to help. Jesus was trusting in his Father. And he trusted so much that he says, I can actually rest. I'll actually wait patiently. I'm okay with how this thing turns out. And so he gets in the boat and he lays down and he goes to sleep. Big storm comes. Whoosh! lightning, thunder, wind. They're taking in water. And guess what Jesus is doing? He's still resting. And sometimes we think, look, dude, there's a storm going on out there. It's not okay to rest. And Jesus is saying, don't wake me up. Don't wake me up. Unless it's an emergency, don't wake me up. And by the way, nothing is an emergency. That's what trust looks like. When I don't care what storm's going on, doesn't mean I can't rest. Because it's like society conditions us that if there's an emergency situation, you need to be stressed. You need to freak out and panic. And Jesus says, what emergency situation? And he sleeps. The reaction of the disciples is, hey, we're all about to die. Now, these guys are the fishermen. They're the ones out there driving boats every day. Jesus wasn't a fisherman. And they're waking him up do something.
At least they thought he could.
You guys are the fishermen. What are you waking me up for? They wake him up. Don't you care that we're going to die? You ever been so mad that you would go off on Jesus? You ever been so nervous and freaked out that you're going to go off on Jesus and be like, Jesus, don't you even care? Huh? You care about me, Jesus? Huh? You going to let us all die? And that's what they did. They freaked out. And Jesus, I picture he gets up and he's like, he does his morning stretch, reaches down, splashes a little water on his face. Everyone's freaking out. And he just walks out and then he's like, knock it off. Shut up, wind, just shut up. Peace, be still. And everything goes quiet. And he walks back. And he's like, what? Where was y'all's faith? Well, what did you guys think was going to happen? Why'd you give up that quick? Why didn't you trust? And Jesus wasn't condemning them or coming down on them. We can hear it that way if we want, because that's how the law and the knowledge of good and evil would want us to hear it. But what he was really doing was saying, why don't you just take a look at yourself and see why you don't trust? Where is your faith? Why are you so fearful? What were you afraid of? Why didn't you trust? Well, the reason I didn't trust is because there was all these storms. Yeah? I knew there were storms. But it didn't wake me up. I still felt we were going to get to the other side. So were you trusting in your ability to get this boat across, or were you trusting in my ability to get this boat across? Because I was trusting in God's ability to get us across to the other side. It was an incredible lesson for them. And they were a little freaked out. Because they looked at each other and I didn't know he could do that. Did you know he could do that? I didn't know he could do that. I was thinking he was going to transport us to the other side or something else. I didn't know he could just go out there and be like, wind, shut up. And the wind would shut up. They all looked at each other I had no idea he could do that. And there's this other time that they're going over to the other side. A lot of stuff happened in boats and around the Sea of Galilee. And there's a big storm. The disciples are in the boat by themselves. This time Jesus is not in the boat with them. He's out walking around on the water for some reason. Because he wants to teach them a lesson. He's trying to disciple them in trust. So he has this incredible lesson planned out for Peter. He's out walking around on the water. Disciples are all trying to figure out how they're going to navigate this boat through the storm. They're trying to figure out, okay, we got to figure out how we're going to get this through the storm. Oh yeah, by the way, we're supposed to trust. Okay, so we should be thinking about trusting God. And here we got this storm, but we're going to trust God. But what Jesus does is he gets rid of the storm. So we're just going to trust Jesus gets rid of the storm. Not what Jesus promised. But nevertheless, they got some idea, right? And so all of a sudden they see Jesus walking around on the water. They're a little bit freaked out because how many of you ever seen people walking around on the water? Unless it's frozen, nobody, right? So here's Jesus walking on the water. They think maybe it's a ghost or something like that. And Peter cries out, Jesus, is that you? He's like, it's me. He's like, if it's you, I just said it was, but if it's you, bid me come and I'll walk out there to you. And Jesus is like, come here. Come on. Yeah, that's great. Come out here. And so Peter gets out of the boat because Jesus said, get out of the boat. Come out here. I have your word. And I trust you. And so Peter trusts Jesus because this is what we're supposed to do. And he gets out and he starts walking on the water. This is really awesome. He's like, I'm trusting God and I'm walking on the water. Oh my God, look at that wave. Look at the storms. I thought Jesus was going to stop the storms. Oh, what are we doing out here? Whoa, what's going on, man? Like, I get it that I'm walking on the water, but I thought you were going to stop the storm. And the storms just kept raging on. And Jesus wasn't saying, peace, be still. Jesus was saying, come on. And I'm looking at my own life going, wait a minute, Jesus, I thought you were going to calm these storms. And he's not calming the storms. He's saying, Greg, come on, let's keep going. Well, I don't want to because there's storms all around me. And I'd rather just you stop and say, peace be still. And Jesus doesn't always stop and say, peace be still. Sometimes he says, come on out here. And the winds are just ravishing and it's devastating and there's storms surrounding your life. And you're saying, God, I want you to stop these. I'm trusting you to stop these. And he says, no, you're not. What you're supposed to do is just trust me and come on out here. But Peter sees the winds and the storms and he matches it up to his ability and his expectations and he begins to sink. And to where Jesus pulls him up, walks him out on the boat, and he's like, man, why'd you stop? Think about it, Peter. Why'd you stop? You were this close, man. You were there. You were walking on the water. Why'd you stop? Because I started looking at the storms. And I stopped looking at you. Man. And so God wants us to trust him. To just trust him. And what does it look like to trust him? Just be patient. Wait on him. Delight yourself in him. Yeah, but all this stuff's going on around me. You can't fix it. You can't. And I know we think we can. There's so much chaos in our lives that we think we can fix. And so we start changing plans and we start veering from the path so that we can start to fix these storms, which is exactly what Peter was doing. He walked away from his path because he wanted to deal with the storms and he wanted to try to figure out how to deal with the storms. And Jesus is just telling us, come on out here. Just trust me and come on out here. And so I'm looking at all the storms in my life and I'm trying to figure out, how do I fix this one? How do I stop this? And oh man, I don't like all the stuff that I'm surrounded with. I want to fix this. How do I fix this? And Jesus is saying, just come on out here and trust me. Jesus, but there's so many storms. Yeah, I know. But aren't you going to stop them? I'm not. Because I want you to come out here and trust me. Because this is the path that I have for you, and I want you to walk through it, and I want you to trust me that there are other options, but the one I'm giving you is the best one. The one that I'm offering you is the best path. And I know these other ones look like shortcuts, and they look like easy buttons, and it looks like you could be in control and fix it, but you can't, and you're going to make it worse. Just trust me and follow me. Amen? Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you for your word.